Hey, good morning, YouTube. It's Greg here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about backing up your Home Assistant system. So if you follow my channel at all, you'll know that I had a major failure last week. I was trying to do what I thought was just a normal update or upgrade to my Home Assistant software, and I still don't know what went wrong, but something went horribly wrong, and I couldn't get the Home Assistant to boot up at all. Um, and of course, I didn't have a backup, and so essentially I had to start my whole system over from scratch. And I still don't have it all 100% the way I had it before. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about backing up Home Assistant and talk about when, where, and what to back up. Now, my needs may be significantly different than yours. My system is non-critical. I mean, I like to have, some automation that turns lights on and off and does some other things around the house. I wouldn't call it necessarily critical, at least not yet. Um, so your needs may differ. It also may depend on what you have available in your network for locations to store your backups. But let's jump into when, where, and what to back up. Hey, good morning, YouTube. It's Greg here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about backing up Home Assistant. So if you follow the channel, you'll know that I had a major meltdown of some kind last week when in the middle of some kind of a core update, I believe, to Home Assistant, something went wrong, horribly wrong, and I lost, my entire setup, and I didn't have a backup, and so I pretty much had to start from scratch. Last week's video was all about essentially starting over with installing Linux, VirtualBox, Home Assistant, Tailscale, all those things that I needed to rebuild because I lost my Home Assistant, and I still don't have my whole system back the way I had it, unfortunately, and I'm still working on it. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to, you know, start backing up my Home Assistant as I go instead of waiting until the end and something bad happens. So today we're going to talk a little bit about when, where, and what to back up. One of the biggest questions, and maybe one of the more complicated ones to take care of, is where to back up your data. So there's a couple of options. Some are really simple, some are not as simple, but provide some big benefits. So Home Assistant has a local backup routine, which most people probably use, myself included originally. Um, but it stores it locally on the computer that's running Home Assistant. And if the system crashes badly, chances are you're going to lose that backup. So although it's an okay option, I don't think that should be the only option for where to back up your data. Some people uh, consider a 3-2-1 rule where you have certain numbers, three local backups, you have two that are on another computer somewhere, and you have one backup that's off site. Um, and so that is probably a good rule of thumb, and one that this particular outline could help with. So in addition to the local backup, if you have any kind of network storage on your network where your Home Assistant runs, that's a great option to put a copy of your backup on a computer other than the one running Home Assistant. So in my particular case, I have a Western Digital MyBook little storage device that is on my network, and I can back up my Home Assistant to that network storage device. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that. And then lastly, there's a really great way and an inexpensive way, essentially free if you have a Google account, that you can move some of your backup files to an offsite location, basically on Google, and there's already some code written that makes that very, very easy to do. So we'll dig into those as we look at where to back up our data. Another thing for us to consider is when to back up your data. So on my system, I think it's appropriate to back it up every day. So I have a daily backup. It runs sometime in the middle of the night. But I also, particularly with my experience with this update that crashed my system, there's also an option to back up your data before every update. And I highly recommend that. I think it makes a lot of sense before you start messing with the system. It's a good idea to do a backup. And I'll show you how you can do that quickly and easily in Home Assistant. So I have a dashboard. That one of the things I look at periodically is what's going on with my backups. I want to make sure that I am in fact getting my system backed up periodically, particularly given the problems I had a week or so ago when I lost my system during an update. So let's jump into the easiest ways to set up some backup. So we go into the settings, we go into system, and we go into backups. And this is where we do most of our configurations and things. So the first thing I want to look at is where am I backing up? So I'm going to go into the backup settings and configure backup. If we scroll down a ways, we have a section for locations. And this is where we're going to set up a couple of things. So first of all, I've already mentioned that there is a local backup, the system. And there's not a whole lot we can do in here other than, say, hey, back it up. And so I've got that turned on. You'll notice I have encryption turned off. That's another topic for another day, I think. But we're not going to talk about encryption. But then you'll notice I also have something called HA backup on a network storage device. So this is option number 2 on where to back up. I'm using my local network storage device. So I'm going to click on the I'm going to go down to Manage Networks. Here's where I would add storage, but I can click on this and see that I have created something called HA Backup. It's a backup usage device. In this case, I've given it the IP address, local IP address. I've picked Windows Samba and a little bit of information. Now, this takes some effort and work on your part, right? You have to set up the network share. And we're not going to go into that today, but that's an important part of this is you have to be able to set up a network share. And in my case, it's a public folder, meaning that there's no security on it, but it is just on my local computer network. And that then allows me to use that network location to do a backup. And when I come down here, I can see that I've got my network backup turned on. Next, I'm going to point out the fact that there is a Home Assistant cloud backup. Now this would be super simple, I think, to use. I've never done it. But it is out there. The only reason I don't use it is because you have to pay for it. I don't think it's terribly expensive. They give you a free 1 month trial if you know are interested in it. But I don't particularly think that's something that I want to pay for. There are some limits too. You get one backup with a maximum size of 5 GB, which probably is sufficient. But I just don't think that that's something I necessarily want, but you could do it if you wanted to. Instead, I've chosen to use the Google Drive integration. Now, another option for offsite storage is to use your Google Drive. So I'm not going to go into all the details here, but you'll notice that I've added, one other location to my system, which is Google Drive. And the way this works is you have to have a Google account. You create a new client for your backup, which is really pretty simple. I'll walk through the steps quickly. You basically say you're creating a web application. You can give it a name, anything you really want. How about Home Assistant Backup 2? There is a URL here that you will need, and you get that from Home Assistant. When you set up the Google Drive, it'll give you the appropriate URL. Google will provide you with two things. Let's see if I can just dummy this up real quick. I don't know if I can. And I'm going to say create. So this URL right here is something that Home Assistant will give you. I'm going to say create, and then you're going to see a couple of things here, and these are very important to copy down. One is your client ID, and one is the client secret or the passcode. So both of these get copied and pasted into Home Assistant to set up the Google Drive. So it's very important that you, while you're in the process of setting these up, you copy both of these, paste them into your Home Assistant setup, and then you'll be fine. Once you do all that, and you're back in Home Assistant, you're going to have this Google Drive option, and we're going to talk about the different settings in there in the next segment. So I just basically told Home Assistant to run a backup using my normal backup parameters. And when we look at the list of all the different backups, you'll notice that there's a new icon over here, which is my Google Drive backup. So when I look at this screen, I've got 7 days worth or 7 backups on my local system. I've got 7 backups that are stored on my network storage device, and now I've got one completely offsite, which is at Google. And if I needed to restore anything, I would have pretty high confidence that I would be able to back up my system or restore my system from my backups. When I flip over to my Google Drive, I can look at my Home Assistant folder, which was created just to do backups, and there is the backup that I made sitting out there on my Google Drive. It's important if you're using off-site cloud storage, certainly, to ensure that you are using encryption when you post these files out to the cloud. So if we, look at mine, the local copy is not encrypted, but the network versions are encrypted. So it's important that you keep that encryption turned on. I think the last thing maybe that is worth talking about is what to back up. So we've let me talk about when to back up. So as I mentioned before, mine is set up to do a daily backup. I let the system decide when, sometime between 4:45 and 5:45 a.m. I don't know why that's particularly important time or optimal time, but I did hear something about some system backups. I assume, on the Home Assistant servers, and this is after that happens, and so it's, for somebody, I guess it's an optimal time. Since I am not using the Home Assistant cloud, I suppose I could make that whatever I wanted to, and it would be okay. An important one here, and I think I mentioned this, is that backup preference before updating. And you have some options in here. You can skip the backup completely. I don't really know why you would want to do that. But I have mine set to back up before update, essentially because I was bitten by an update that blew up the system somehow. I don't know what happened. It's probably a user error of some kind, but it certainly happened. And then you have some options here on how long to keep them. 7 days is probably too much, particularly if I'm putting them up on the cloud. But for right now, I'm gonna leave it that way, I think. So my file size right now is estimated to be about 33 megabytes. So it's not a huge backup file, so I don't mind doing everything right now. We already talked about the locations, so the local backup, my NAS, and then the Google Drive. And I have mine backing up, before any updates, just so that if something were to happen, I want to make sure I have a good copy. I'm going to increase the number of those, I think, that are retained. And I think that is about it. Now, the one thing we didn't talk about yet is, what do we back up? We've said that we can do partial backups or full backups. I like the full backup, but if you really wanted to do something different than that, you can turn on and off things. For example, maybe a space waster is the history of your sensors. Now, if those sensor history isn't critical to you, well, you could turn it off. If you have camera recordings, security camera recordings or something like that, that's going to take up space, we know for sure, so we could turn that off. So there are ways that you can, set things to turn on and off if you think you want to do a partial. Right now, I still prefer doing it all, and that's the way I'm going to do mine. So I hope this tutorial helps a little bit. As somebody who was, bitten by a system failure, I think having a backup is very important. I do like the Google Drive backup as an option to have something off-site, which is a good practice. And honestly, I have 2 Home Assistant systems running, one here where I am at in Florida, one at my home in Indiana. and my NAS is only at one location at a time. I carry it with me, so it's in Florida today, and I can use I can use that NAS to back up my system here in Florida right now. So I need a way to back up my Indiana home other than the local copy, and I'll be using Google Backup for that as well. So my final words of wisdom are: it's not a matter of if you need a backup; it's a matter of when you're going to need a backup. So don't let it sit too long. Come up with a way to back up your Home Assistant setup so that when something goes haywire, you can restore it painlessly and get back online. We've talked through, the various considerations on a backup system. I want to leave you with just this final thought that whatever you decide, whatever's right for your system and your way of backing up, do something. Back up your system. You will need it at some point. Ask me how I know. Well, we hope you liked this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. We'd love to add more folks to our channel, and we'll have more next time. Hey Google, turn off the family room lights.
2 lights off.